am back for another reading of the suttas, and before I get started, I'd like to tell you kind of the reasoning behind getting into all these suttas to begin with. These meditations and poetry and background information is that I feel very lucky this year again that there will be a World Healing Day taking place online throughout the world. Millions and millions of people will be meditating, praying, practicing Qigong, yoga, Tai Chi, sending out healing energy for the planet, for people on April 30th. And as it happens, this is my birthday, and I'm planning on meditating all day long and joining the party, of course, and I hope you do too. So I hope that you look it up and join us all on World Healing Day, and stick around for these attunements so that we can get our planet back in the shape that it should be, put our intentions right, and that sort of thing. Pray for people that need healing, and I'm trying to give you some background information on how to get yourself set up with this energy that can be sent out through the universe to protect us and help us. So this is just a small part of it. Another thing that I will be doing in the coming weeks is adding some videos on things like Qigong and Tai Chi. So hopefully this, along with the meditations, and I'm trying to get to mind, body, spirit, the whole shebang before April 30th. So please stick around and subscribe. And also, I could tell you that on my website I have a bunch of information too, and that is jilljj.com. Next is Kavada's story. There was a priest in Benares, a man of Brahmin caste, learned in all the wisdoms of the Vedas, not of the common types of priests, but an honest searcher after truth. He longed for peace of heart and was anxious to reach nirvana, yet he could not understand how it was possible in the flesh to attain perfect tranquility, for life is restless, and in none of the four stages of aggregation can the calmness be found which is the conditional of the blissful state. So this priest thought to himself, before I can make any progress, I must solve the question, where do the four states of aggregation, the solid state, the watery state, the fiery state, the state of air, utterly cease? Having prepared his mind, the priest entered into a trance in which the path to the gods became revealed to him, and he drew near to where the four great kings of the gods were. And having drawn near, he addressed the four great kings as follows: My friends, where do the four states of aggregation, the solid state, the watery state, the fiery state, the state of air, utterly cease? When he had thus spoken, the four great kings answered and said, We gods, O priest, do not know where the four states of aggregation utterly cease. However, O priest, there are the gods of the higher heavens who are more glorious and more excellent than we are. They would know where the four states of aggregation utterly cease. When the four great kings had thus spoken, the priest visited the gods of the higher heavens and approached their ruler, Ishvara. He propounded the same question and received the same answer. Ishvara, the Lord, advised the priest to go to Yama. He is a powerful and has charge over the souls of the dead. He is apt to be versed in problems that are profound and recondite and abstruse and occult. Go to Yama. He may know where the four states of aggregation utterly cease. The priests act upon Ishvara's advice and went to Yama, but the result was the same. Yama sent the priests to the satisfied gods, whose chief ruler is the great satisfied one. They are the gods who are pleased with whatever is. They are the gods of serenity and contentment. If there is anyone who can answer your question, they will be able to tell you where the four states of aggregation utterly cease. The priest went to the heaven of the satisfied gods, but here too he was disappointed. Their ruler, the great satisfied one, said, I, O priest, do not know where these four states of aggregation, the solid states, the watery state, the fiery state, the state of air, utterly cease. However, O priest, there are gods in the retinue of Brahma who are more glorious and more excellent than I. They would know where these four states of aggregation utterly cease. Then this same priest entered again upon a state of trance, which his thoughts found the way to Brahma world. There the priest drew near to where the gods of the retinue of Brahma were, and having come near, he spake of the gods of the retinue of Brahma as follows. My friends, where do these four states of aggregation, the solid state, the watery state, the fiery state, the state of air, utterly cease? When he had thus spoken, the gods of the retinue of Brahma spake as follows. We, O priest, cannot answer your question. However, there is Brahma, O great Brahma, the first cause of all, the supreme being, the all-perfection, the all-perceiving one, the controller, the Lord of all, the creator, the fashioner, the chief, the victor, the ruler, the all-father, he who is more glorious, more excellent than all celestial beings. He will know where the four states of aggregation, the solid state, the watery state, fiery state, and the state of air do utterly cease. Said the priest, but where, my friends, is the great Brahma at the present moment? And the gods answered, we do not know, O priest, where the great Brahma is, or in what direction the great Brahma can be found. But inasmuch, O priest, as he is omnipresent, you will see signs and notice a most radiance and appearance of an effulgence that then Brahma will appear. This is the previous sign of the appearance of Brahma, that a radiance is noticed and effulgence appears. The priest, having invoked Brahma's appearance with due reverence and according to the rules of the Veda, in short time Brahma appeared. Then the priest drew to where Brahma was, and having drawn near, he spake to Brahma as follows. My friend, where do the four states of aggregation, the solid state, the watery state, the fiery state, and the state of air utterly cease? When he had thus spoke, the great Brahma opened his mouth and spake as follows. I, O priest, am Brahma, the great Brahma, a supreme being, the all-perfection, the all-perceiving one, the controller, Lord of all, and creator, the fashioner, the chief, the victor, the ruler, the all-father. A second time the priest asked his question, and the great Brahma gave him the same answer, saying, I, O priest, am Brahma, the great Brahma, the supreme being, the all-perfection. And he did not cease until he enumerated all the titles applied to him. Having patiently listened to Brahma, the priest repeated his question a third time and added, I am not asking you, my friend, are you Brahma, the great Brahma, the supreme being, the all-perfection, the all-perceiver, the all-father, and whatever titles and accomplishments you may have in addition? But this, my friend, is what I ask of you. Where do the four states of aggregation, the solid state, the watery state, the fiery state, and the state of air, utterly cease? The great Brahma remained unmoved and answered a third time, saying, I, O priest, am Brahma, the great Brahma, supreme Brahma, all perfection, all perceiver, enumerating again all the titles applied to him. Now the priest rose and said, Are you truly a living being or an automaton, that you can do nothing but repeat a string of words? And now the great Brahma rose from his seat and approached the priest, and leading him aside to a place where he could not be overheard by any of the gods, spake to him as follows. The gods of my suite and all worshippers of the world that honor me with the sacrifice and adoration believe that Brahma sees all things, knows all things, has penetrated all things. Therefore, O priest, I answered you as I did in the presence of the gods. But I will tell you, O priest, in confidence, that I do not know where the four states of aggregation, the solid state, the watery state, the fiery state, and the state of air utterly cease. It was a mistake, O priest, that you left the earth where the Blessed One resides and came up to heaven in a quest for an answer which cannot be given you here. Turn back, O priest, and having drawn near to the Blessed One, the enlightened Buddha, ask him your question, and as the Blessed One shall explain to you, so believe. Thereupon the priest, as quickly as a strong man might stretch out his bent arm, disappeared from the Brahma heaven and appeared before the Blessed One. And he greeted the Blessed One and sat down respectfully at one side and spake to the Blessed One as follows. Reverend Sir, where do the four states of aggregation, the solid state, the watery state, the fiery state, the state of air, utterly cease? When he had thus spoken, the Blessed One answered as follows. Once upon a time, O priests, some seafaring traders had a land-sighted bird when they sailed out to sea, and when the ship was mid-ocean, they set free that land-sighted bird. This bird flies in an easterly direction, in a southerly direction, in a westerly direction, and in a northerly direction, and to the intermediate quarters. And if it sees land anywhere, it flies thither, but if it does not see land, it returns to the ship. In exactly the same way, O priest, when you have searched as far as the Brahma world and found no answer to your question, you return to the same place whence you came. The question, O priest, ought never have been put thus. Where do these four states of aggregation cease? The question ought to be as follows. Oh, where can water, where can wind, where fire and earth no footing find? Where disappear all mine and thine, good, bad, long, short, coarse, and fine? And where do name and form both cease, to find nothingness release? The answer, however, is this. 'Tis in the realm of radiance bright, invisible, eternal light, and infinite a state of mind, where water, earth, and fire, and wind, and elements of any kind will nevermore footing find. There disappear all mine and thine, good, bad, long, short, and coarse, and fine. There too will name and form both cease, to find in nothingness release. Then the priest understood that the world of matter is restless and remains restless, but peace of heart is a condition of mind which must be acquired by self-discipline, by wisdom, by devotion, The gods cannot help, nor even can Brahma himself, the great Brahma, the supreme being, the Lord and Creator. Sacrifice is useless, and prayer and worship are of no avail, but if we desire to attain the highest state of bliss, which is nirvana, we must follow the Blessed One, the teacher of gods and men, and like him, we must, by our own effort, become lamps unto ourselves and resolutely walk upon the Noble Eightfold Path. And the next reading that I have is called The Confession. Confession. The young novice spent his days in study and his nights in doubt. He followed with interest the recitations of his instructor on the philosophy of the Enlightened One. He enjoyed the birth stories of Bodhisattva, the parables of the master, of their moral applications, but when he retired in the evening or was otherwise left to his own thoughts, he began to ponder on the uselessness of the hermit's life and longed to return to the world with its temptations and struggles, its victories and defeats, its pleasures and pains, its hopes and fears. He enjoyed the solitude of the forest, but he began to think that the restlessness of the world could offer him more peace of mind than the inactivity of a monkish life. When Charaka had familiarized himself with all the sutras and wise sayings which were known to the brethren of the monastery, the time began to hang heavy on his hands. He felt that the religious discourses were becoming tedious. Weeks elapsed, and Charaka despaired of either becoming accustomed to monkish life or understanding the deeper meaning of their renunciation of the world, and his conscience began to trouble him. Furthermore, the elder brethren respected him for his knowledge and gentleness. The more they praised him, the less worthy he deemed himself of their recognition. On this the day of confession approached again. He had spent the hours in fasting and self-discipline, but all this availed nothing. He was weary and felt a sadness of heart beyond description. In the evening, all the brethren were gathered together in the Chaita, in the large hall where they held their devotional meetings. The aisles lay in mystic darkness, and the pictures on the heavy columns and on the ceiling were half concealed. They appeared and disappeared from time to time in the flicker of the torches that were employed to light the room. The monks sat in silent expectation, their faces showing quietude and calmness, which proved that they were unconcerned about their own fate, ready to live or die, as their doom might be, only bent on the aim of reaching nirvana. The senior monk arose and addressed the assembly. "Reverend sirs," he said, "let the orders hear me. Today is full moon and the day of unburdening of our hearts. If the order is ready, let the order consecrate this day to the recital of the confession. This is our first duty, so let us listen to the declaration of purity." The brethren responded by saying, "We are here to listen and will consider the questions punctiliously." I'm saying, "Oh, cool." You don't run across the word. I'm sorry, I think Buddha would smile. You don't run across the word a whole lot these days, punctiliously, and it just was one of these momentarily humorous sort of things for me, so I just wanted to point that out. Punctiliously. The speaker continued, "Whoever has committed a transgression, let him speak. Those who are free from the consciousness of guilt, let them be silent." At this moment, a tall figure rose slowly and hesitatingly from the ground and at the further end of the hall. He did not speak, but stood there quietly, towering for some time in the dusky recesses between two pillars, as though he were an apparition of a guilty conscience. A presiding brother at last broke the presence and addressed the brethren, saying, "A monk who has committed a fault and remembers it, if he endeavors to be pure, should confess his fault. When a fault is confessed, it will lie lightly upon him." Still, the shadowy figure stood motionless, which seemed to increase in gloom in the hall. "One of the brethren has risen, indicating thereby that he desires to speak," continued the abbot. "A monk who does not confess a fault after the question has been put 3 times is guilty of an intentional lie, and the Blessed One teaches us that an intentional lie cuts a man off from sanctification." The gloomy figure now lifted his head with suppressed emotion and began to speak. "Venerable Father," he said, "and ye, reverend sirs, may I speak out and unburden my heart?" The voice was that of a novice, and a slight commotion passed through the assemblage. Having been encouraged to speak free and without reserve, Charaka began. "Venerable Father, and ye, reverend sirs, I feel guilty of having infringed on one of the great prohibitions. I am as a palm tree, the top of which has been destroyed. I am broken in spirit and full of contrition. I am anxious to be a disciple of the Shakyamuni, but I am not worthy to be a monk. I never have been, and I never shall be." Here his voice faltered, and he sobbed like a child. The brethren were horror-stricken. They thought at once that the youth was contaminated by some secret crime. He was too young to be free from passion, too beautiful to be beyond temptation, too quick-witted not to be ambitious. True, they loved him, but they felt now that their affection for him was a danger, and there was no one in the assembly who did not feel the youth's self-accusation as partly directed against himself. But the abbot overcame the sentiment that quickly arose and encouraged the penitent brother to make a full confession. "Do not despair," he said. "Thou art young. It is natural that thy heart should still cherish dreams of love, and that alluring reminiscences should still haunt thy mind." "I entered the brotherhood with false hopes and wrong aspirations," replied a novice. "I am looking for wisdom and supernatural powers. I am ambitious to do and to dare, and I hope to acquire deeper knowledge through self-discipline and holiness. I am free from actual transgression, but my holiness is a mockery. My piety is not genuine. I am a hypocrite, and I find that I am belying you, Venerable Father, that all monks of this venerable community, but it grieveth me most that I am false to myself. I am not worthy to wear the yellow robe." Thou art not expected to be perfect, replied the abbot. Thou art walking on a path, and hast not yet reached the goal. Thy fault is impatience with thyself, and not hypocrisy. Do not palliate my fault, venerable father, Charaka said. There is something wrong in my heart and in my mind. If I am not a hypocrite, then I am a heretic, and heretic walks on the wrong road in the wrong direction, and can never reach the goal. I do not extenuate, but do not qualify and mitigate my faults, for I feel that their grievousness, and I am anxious to be let out of the darkness into the light. I long for life and the unfoldment of life. I want to comprehend the deepest truths. I want to know, to taste the highest bliss. I want to accomplish the greatest deeds. Then thou art worldly. Thou longest for power, for fame, for honor, for pleasures, suggested the abbot inquiringly. Thou art not yet free from illusion of selfhood. It is not the truth, then, that thou wantest, but thyself to be owner of the truth. It is self-enhancement, not service, vanity, not helpfulness. That may be, Reverend Father, replied the novice. Thy wisdom shall judge me. Though I do not feel myself burdened by selfishness. No, I do not love myself. I would gladly sacrifice myself for any noble cause, for truth, for justice, for procuring bliss for others, nor do I crave for worldly pleasures, but I do not feel any need of shirking them. Pleasures, like pains, are stuff that life is made of, and I do not hate life. I enjoy unfoldment of life with all its aspirations, not for my sake, but for life's sake. I do not love myself, I love God. That is my fault, and that is the root from which I grow all my errors, heresies, hypocrisies, and the false proposition in which I now am. The good abbot did not know what to say. He looked at the poor novice and pitied him for his pangs of conscience. Everyone present felt that the man suffered, but there was something wrong with him, and no one could exactly say what it was. His ambition was not sinful but noble, and that he loved God was certainly not a crime. At last the abbot addressed Subhuti, Charaka's senior and teacher, and asked him, "Have you, Reverend Brother, noticed in the novice's behavior or views anything strange or exceptional?" Subhuti replied that he had not. The abbot continued to inquire about Charaka's previous religious relations and the significance of his love of God. "I do not know, Reverend Sir," was the elder monk's answer. "He is not a Brahmin, but a descendant of a noble family of the northern conquerors that came out of India and founded the kingdom of Gandhara. Yet he knows Brahmin writings and is familiar with the philosophy of the Yavanas and of the distant West. I discoursed with him and understand that by God he means all that is right and good and true in the world, and without whom there would be no enlightenment." "Very well," proclaimed the abbot. "There is no sin in loving God, for what you describe as God in our Lord Shakyamuni, the Enlightened One, the Buddha, the Tathagata." But he added not without a suggestion of reproof, "You might dignify the Lord Buddha with higher title than God. Gods, if they exist, are not Buddha's equals." When Bodhisattva was a child, the gods prostrated themselves before him, for they recognized that the Tathagata's superiority even before he had attained complete Buddhahood. The divinity of the gods is less than the noble lives of the Bodhisattva. I'm sorry. For anybody who's having a hard time with this, I do have this on my website as a reading, so that you can actually look at the words as that, like most people. There's a few things I need improvement with, and Indian is one of them. Anyway, having thus discussed the case of the novice Charaka, the abbot addressed himself to the brotherhood, asking the reverencers what they would deem right in the present case. Was the brother at all guilty of the fault of which he accused himself, and if so, what should he do to restore good standing and set himself aright in the brotherhood? Then Subhuti arose and said, Charaka is a man of deep comprehension and of an earnest temper. The difficulty which he encounters is not for us to judge him or advise him about. But there is a philosopher living in the kingdom of Magadha by the name of Avagosha. If there is anyone in the world that can set the erring brother right, it is Ekavash-Gosha, whose wisdom is so great that since Buddha entered nirvana, there has been no man on earth who might have surpassed him, either in knowledge or judgment. So Subhuti proposed to write a letter of introduction to Ekavash, commending the brother Charaka to his care and suggesting to him to dispel his doubts and to establish him again firmly in the faith in which the truth shines forth brilliantly, more brilliantly than any other religion. The abbot agreed with Subhuti, and the general opinion among the brethren was in favor of sending Charaka to the kingdom of Magadha, to the philosopher Ekavash, to have his doubts dispelled and his heart established once again in the faith of Buddha, Blessed One, the teacher of the truth. Before they could carry out their plan, the session was interrupted by a messenger from the royal court of Gandhara, who inquired for a novice by the name of Charaka, a man well versed in medicine and other learned arts. A dreadful epidemic had spread in the country, and the old king had died while two of his sons were afflicted with the disease and now lay at the point of death. The oldest son and heir to the throne was in the field defending his country against the Parthians and some mountaineers of the east, not only subject to the kingdom of Magadha, but practically independent, had utilized the opportunity afforded by these circumstances to descend into the fertile valleys of Gandhara and pillage the country. The regard in which Charaka had been held in the brotherhood during his novitiate had not suffered through his confession, and he was even heightened. It had been known in the cloister that the young novice was of a noble family, but he had made nothing of it, and so the intimate connection with the royal family of the country created an uncommon sensation among his venerable brethren. Now a special awe attached to this person, since it was known that the young man knew of Charaka, and, needing his wisdom, sent a special messenger to call him back to the capital. In spite of the interruption of the ceremony of confession was continued and closed in the traditional way. All the questions regarding transgressions that might have been committed were asked, and in some cases sins were punctiliously reported by those who felt a need of unburdening their conscience. Penances were imposed, which were willingly and submissively assumed. When everything had been attended to, the abbot turned again to Charaka, saying, "If you had concealed your secret longings, you would have been guilty of hypocrisy. But now, since you have openly laid bare the state of your mind, there is no longer any falsehood in you. Therefore, I find no fault with your conduct. Should you find that you cannot remain a monk, you must know that there is no law that obliges you to remain in the brotherhood against your will." The abbot then granted Charaka permission to obey the king's call, saying, "You are free to leave the order in peace and goodwill, but I enjoin you to make a vow that you will not leave your doubts unsettled, and that as soon as you have attended to the pressing duties which will engage your attention at the capital, you will make a pilgrimage to the philosopher Akvangasha, who lives in the kingdom of Magadha. He will be a better advisor than I, and he shall decide whether or not you are fit to be a monk of our Lord, the Buddha." And the next one is Gandhara. I'm going to take a little bit of a break here. And I see that we're already at 34 minutes, actually more than that. And so I'm going to pick up the Gandhara with a part 3 video. And so for now, I'm just going to say have a great day and namaste. you.